Okay, cool.
Um,
Cool,
give
we're
it a
live on
minute.
air. Okay, just
Oh,
giving
we're live.
a minute.
Okay,
Yeah, we're live. We started broadcasting.
cool. Um, all right,
Um,
so go for it, T.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for joining us today on our first webinar on engagement ads. Um, so yeah, feel free to ask questions afterwards, and yeah, enjoy the webcast. Heading over to you, Jared.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I think I know a lot of people here. Some people don't know me. So just for a bit of context, my name's Jared, and I head up the branding solutions side of the business. And today we're going to be going through engagement ads, what are the different types of ad formats, what they can do, and yeah, I'll ask to save questions for the end. And we have a lovely Google prize for the best question. I can't reveal what that prize is just yet. So you know, think nice and hard, and the harder and the better the question, the better for everyone. Cool. So let me just share my screen. I'm going to go through a presentation with you guys and show you some live demos. Can everyone hear me fine? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to ask if, T, will you just let me know if everyone can see my screen? Yeah? Um, will someone say, yes, Jared, I see your screen, please?
Yes, Jared, we see your screen,
Thank you.
please.
I can't see you guys now. I can only see my presentation. Okay? Cool.
Okay.
So we're going to go through engagement ads. Essentially, engagement ads are a new creative ad format that Google's been rolling out, allowing you to win those moments that matter and essentially giving people choice to engage with a lot more rich ad units than we've had in the past. Now, engagement ads, you can do a whole bunch of stuff with, and I'll take you through all the different ad formats that we have. You know, essentially the beauty around the ad product is that it allows for deeper engagement. You know, people pre-qualify themselves when they engage with our ad units. And from a branding point of view, you can get a real benefit in terms of the experience and the associations that people have. You can do things from games within the ad unit to coming up with custom recipes to doing car configurations. There's a whole host of things that can be done. So I'll take you through all the different stuff. Essentially, there are three stages to the engagement ad. Initially, it's a static banner that you place, which is to entice someone to actually hover over the actual ad unit. Then we've got a 2-second delay when the ad unit starts to expand. Excuse me, and then once the ad unit is expanded, you can engage with it in whichever way is possible. Now, how this all works in terms of pricing is you as the advertiser don't pay for the initial first 2 seconds of someone hovering over the ad unit. And then what that does is that eliminates any accidental expansions. And as you can imagine, anyone who's made the choice now to engage with your ad unit has told you via this 2-second delay that they are ready to hear what you have to say. And anyone that is making that choice, you can believe that these people are a lot more engaged and they're a lot more receptive to your message. You as the advertiser, you pay on a cost per engagement pricing model. So what that means is only after 2 seconds of someone hovering over the ad do you pay, and you're not paying for the impressions, you're not paying for the clicks off to a website or to wherever else, and you're not paying for any of the interactions within the ad unit. So I think it's a really effective pricing model, as well as that 2-second delay. Basically, you make sure that people have really pre-qualified themselves and that all the interactions you're getting should be meaningful. So we've basically got two families of these ad units. The one family, which is just pretty much an only child, would be the hover to play ad unit. And then the other family is, when the slide changes, the Lightbox family. And I'll get into a bit more of an organogram of the two units now. So this is what it looks like. These are the different ad products that we have. You'll see the hover to play in the top right there, grayed out. So that's a standalone ad unit, which I'll show you an example of shortly. Then we've got the Lightbox family that sit within the Google Ready Ads gallery. What we mean by that is that these are existing templates that sit within AdWords that you don't need any custom building for. And I'll take you through examples of those. And then we've got, and then we've got our custom Lightboxes, which are being able to have a live stream within the ad unit, to do car configurations, being able to do mastheads within the ad unit, and custom Lightboxes where, you know, pretty much your imagination can go wild. And once again, I'll take you through a couple of examples. Some of the ad units that are in the Google's ad gallery, you need to request from your Google representatives. There's only the hover to play ad unit and the one video Lightbox, which I'll show you now. That's available to everyone. The other ad units, which is the 3 video Lightbox and catalog Lightboxes, for example, you need to speak to your Google representative directly to get that done for your clients. So I'll be sending this deck to everyone here, and in this deck, these are all live demo examples of the different creators, different ad units, and I'll take you through a couple examples now. Cool. So this is the hover to play ad unit. I put my cursor over it, and I've got a 3-second delay, and then the video, whatever video that you decide, starts to play. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It doesn't expand into, you know, a greater motif. It remains within the ad placement. Here we have the one video Lightbox. And essentially with this is that it will play an individual YouTube video, and then you can select a banner to go underneath that. That banner is obviously clickable to another website. So that is a self-serve. The first two that I just showed you now is available to every advertiser. It's in AdWords, and anyone could select this right now and advertise it. The other ad units that I'm about to show you, you'd need to speak to a Google representative to get done for you. This is an example of a 3 video Lightbox. So here you can see we've got 3 different videos on the right-hand side, which I could decide to engage further if I wanted to, as well as a banner at the bottom, which is clickable. And again, a reminder is that you as the advertiser, you're only paying for the engagement. You're not paying for any further activity, whether someone clicks to your website or engages in any further videos. So it's really cool, and there's no minimum spend thresholds, which I'll get into with other ad units when they get a bit more complex. Okay, so this, if I'm not mistaken, is the masthead Lightbox ad unit. So you hover over the ad, and as you would have it, if you're running a masthead, it would be using the same creative. If you're pulling through a video, it would be using that. Right now, what I didn't mention earlier is that some of our ad units have minimum spend thresholds, and there's a couple reasons for that. The masthead ad unit, as far as I'm aware, is a $10,000 minimum spend threshold. What I will say though is that we're in a situation now in South Africa where we're actually able to negotiate internally these minimum prices. So if you've got clients that are considering certain ad units that are very expensive, it's still worth having a discussion with your Google representative. This is an example of a catalog ad unit. There's no minimum spend for this ad product, and it sits within AdWords. You hover over, and basically any customer you have with an existing catalog, whether they're using it for print and magazines, could essentially be advertising this online too. And you can make each one of these individual items linkable to the website, and people could purchase from there. What we do advise, though, is that the less cluttered your catalog ad unit, the better. Sometimes it gets a little bit too cluttered, and I understand catalogs are generally not made with digital in mind, but it's still a nice way to get your products out there using a digital ad format. There's no minimum spend threshold for this ad unit, but you would still need to speak to a Google representative to get that done. This is what's called a custom Lightbox ad unit. By custom meaning the creative was done and customized for this particular ad unit. So all it is really is there's a video as the centerpiece, and you can click on the different parts of the car that you'd like to know about. And you can click off from this ad unit to create and customize your own ad unit. For this ad unit, again, the minimum threshold would be $10,000. So if you think that you've got a client that would be interested in this, have a chat with, again, your Google rep. Now we're getting into the more advanced stuff. So this is another custom Lightbox ad unit, where you can do a whole host of things in here, from store locators to couponing, to this would actually feed through to the advertiser's website to be able to place an order, which is quite remarkable.
Jared, just a quick question: Are these customized ones? Do we have to build that within the DoubleClick Studio? Is that correct?
Yeah, so the ones that you need to customize get done with DoubleClick. Yeah, no, that's a good question. They do get done through DoubleClick Studio. We would have a media consultant that would work with you guys on that. But yeah, the main build does happen within that. Okay. You can elaborate a little bit further as we get down the line.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, man.
So this is like another example of a custom Lightbox that I think is super awesome. And as you get more and more complex, the minimum spend threshold gets a bit higher. I'll stop speaking now just for a sec. So essentially what's happening here is you can actually play a game within the video.
Wait,
so I'm going to skip the video.
You can make Dad eat his words, then step up to the cheetah pulse and unleash cheese-flavored deliciousness.
Okay, so now here we are. Aim for his mouth. And I'm literally pressing my cursor and aiming to shoot these cheetahs.
Delicious.
Which is pretty cool. I'll just have to do this, obviously. Okay, too much fun. Right, so I mean, this kind of custom Lightbox, we have different, essentially you could do anything within the ad unit, as long as you're able to build it. Here we have different spend thresholds depending on whether you're going to be using HTML5 or Flash. For Flash, our minimum spend threshold, and this is also dependent on what you're actually trying to do, is around $50,000. I know that's a lot of money, especially in South Africa. So again, these are potentially negotiable depending on what you're actually trying to do. This is just a benchmark threshold. And for HTML5, it's $30,000. It's actually a lot easier for us to do HTML5 than to do Flash. It actually ends up being a better user experience most of the time too. So I would advise going down the HTML5 route if you can. And just to reiterate the point is, you know, we understand that these are hefty price thresholds. It's very much dependent on a case-by-case scenario. So if you feel that you have a client that's prepared to spend a fair amount of money on something quite innovative and elaborate, it's still worth having the discussion. Cool, back to the presentation. There were a couple ad units that I didn't show you there that I'll just show you some screen grabs of, just because they weren't displaying. I'm just going to wait for the presentation to load properly. So you're able to do, I showed you in the one ad unit, you're able to do store locations, which I think is pretty cool. That spend threshold potentially could go down to around $15,000. Again, depending on how complex, how many stores, etc. So that's generally quite useful, especially for guys in the brick and mortar, car dealerships, retail outlets, restaurants, etc. A new ad unit, which I think would be quite interesting to a lot of performance and for branding types of clients, is our lead generation lightbox, where you're able to capture people's information within a form within the ad unit. That spend threshold also will be able to go down to around $15,000. And essentially the information is stored in the Google Apps engine, but it's completely separate from Google. Only the advertiser or the client has access to this information. So we're taking user information very seriously here. And I can send you guys a whole bunch of info on, you know, the privacy and all that kind of stuff, because I know that generally gets mentioned here. Cool. So just to kind of wrap up, you know, engaging ads in a lean forward experience is something that's really valuable. We find that the engagement rates are really high with our ad units, and you know, from a branding point of view, from a brand experience, those softer metrics do really well. Essentially, the idea of that 2-second hover overlay, when someone's receptive to listening to you, can expect it to be a much more meaningful experience, and we're able to scale these types of ad products across the Google Display Network, which gives you a fair amount of reach. The nice thing to think about when it comes to these ad units is extending your reach when you're going about doing YouTube video campaigns. Essentially, a lot of these ad units are pulling through YouTube videos, and if you're trying to drive views for a particular video, or you're trying to get your message out there, you can think beyond YouTube, and you can kind of double your bet with our engagement ads units to extend your reach and to extend the type of impact that you would like to get. Same for mastheads. I mean, if you're going through the trouble of creating a masthead, and your client feels that they want to really get the message out there, you know, putting a masthead into the engagement ad can really do well. You know, it's the same ad unit, but it's just across so many different more publisher sites and so many more touch points. And then for live streaming, now this is also one of our very it's an expensive ad unit. It comes in at, I think, around 50,000 US as a minimum spend. There is obviously negotiation around that, but at the end of the day, if you're going and you've got a client that wants to do a live stream, and that live stream is going to sit on their YouTube channel, essentially you could have an ad unit where people could actually watch the live stream wherever they are within the ad unit, which is super powerful. And if there is any kind of big events, it's a great way to get big numbers around particular live streams.
Jared, just a quick one on that. Do you guys help out with the infrastructure on the live streaming stuff, or is that all up to us to set up?
We would be able to help you from a consultative point of view.
But on hardware and all that sort of thing, we just supply everything else, cameras and.
You would need to.
Okay, great.
You would need to go through either in-house or third-party companies who are pros at getting the live stream done. What this ad unit is doing is simply pulling the feed from your YouTube live stream. So depending on the user's internet speeds and the quality of your live stream that you're doing, will determine how good it actually comes out.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. So the custom lightbox ad units, I showed you an example with Cheetos, and you know, pretty much anything's possible here. You can do some really innovative stuff. The spend threshold is up for negotiation, basically in terms of what you're trying to do. If it's a very, very complex execution, you know, that would take a couple months to do, then we'd have to be more on the higher end of things just to cover our own costs. But again, if you've got some creative ideas and you've got a client who feels that they want to do something cool, feel free to reach out to your Google rep and have a discussion. Same with car configurators. It's a really, really cool way to showcase any types of auto brands. Get people to have deep engagements with the car. Launching products like this has been very effective. And a couple pointers in terms of engagement ads. So again, there's a lot of branding that can take place that you're not paying for, and a lot of engagement that you're not paying for. So, you know, essentially it's a cost per engagement model based on that 2-second overlay, and that certainly helps with any types of accidental expansion. So you pretty much know when you're looking in your report that the people that engage with your ad unit chose to, and those are really meaningful engagements. We incur the rich media ad serving costs for you, and in terms of getting your message out there, we believe that through the display network there's a real good possibility of driving a lot of traction. Cool. So this is just for your guys' reference. I mentioned it earlier. Hover to Play and One Video Lightbox are available and self-serve to everyone. The catalog lightbox and the 3 video lightbox, you'd need to speak to your Google representative. We don't have a collection lightbox in South Africa yet. What that is basically pulling through Merchant Center feeds for products. We don't have Merchant Center in South Africa at the moment, so you know, that's our limiting factor there. And then plus post ads, you can also do. The only threshold for any client doing a plus post ad is to have at least 1,000 Google Plus followers. So this is what's currently available from the ad ready gallery, as well as those custom light boxes I showed you earlier. The live stream, the masthead, the car configurator, and the custom. Now, in terms of reporting, it can be a little bit confusing as the AdWord interface really set up for engagement ad units. So when you're setting up a new campaign, make sure you select the engagement display network, and then you target whatever categories and interests make sense for the particular campaign, and then you select your ad unit. We have the invitation panel, which is basically that static image that the user sees before hovering over the ad unit. Obviously make that as enticing and as high quality as possible, because that's going to be the initial thing that captures someone's attention. And then you have the option of having a different ending image for the user, as well as the YouTube links that will reference the videos that you want to display. You can also put in redirection URLs, basically sending people to any external page that makes sense for the campaign. So I'm not going to get into too much of the detail here. You guys will have this deck with all of the specs. You've seen the ad units. This was an example of the catalog ad format. And then plus post ads, I mentioned earlier. So essentially what plus post ads are, for anyone who doesn't know, is you can turn any post that you do on Google Plus on your brand's page into an actual display ad unit. People can engage with that particular post. They can plus one it from the ad unit. They can comment from the ad unit. And from an engagement point of view and from an authenticity point of view, it seems to be doing really well. There's no minimum spend required for this. It's just you need to have an active plus page with a minimum of 1,000 followers. So that's the plus post ads. So I'm not going to get into too much detail here outside of, you know, all of these ad units are available to you essentially. Well, 90% of them. Some of them come with spend thresholds, some of them don't. If there's any questions you have, you just need to, for example, you know, you've got a client that's interested in potentially doing a masthead Lightbox ad unit. Get in touch with your Google account manager, and once you guys agree on a proposal, then we will initiate a kickoff call with our media managers, and they'll discuss with you guys what the turnaround times are. They'll take any questions that you have, and generally, you know, we have explicit turnaround times for different ad units. You know, our relatively complex ad units turnaround times are around 6 to 9 days. So obviously planning in advance is absolutely key to make these kind of things work. We won't be able to do custom light boxes with a 1 to 2 day turnaround. It's just not possible. So we obviously need to plan this in advance. So the sooner you speak to your Google account manager and the sooner we get that kickoff call going to get creatives ready, the less hassles we'll have. Once it goes live, you'll have your own reporting within AdWords. Some of the ad units that run through DFA, through DoubleClick, will send you DoubleClick reports. Those render every 48 hours, and you can request them as and when you need. We'll, again, any kind of additional information that you would need, obviously just reach out to your Google account manager. In terms of targeting, what we recommend is, you have a question? Okay, just checking the time. In terms of targeting, what we recommend is using affinity segments. Affinity segments are pretty much our branding targeting solution. They've grouped people based on behavior. It's very much in line with audience buying, where interest category marketing was more, call it linear, in terms of our grouping people based on interests. So, for example, if you wanted to target beauty mavens, auto enthusiasts, you know, movie buffs, that kind of stuff, you'd be able to target them via affinity segments. It's harder to group those kind of people through interest category marketing. We're not saying that interest category marketing is not useful. What we do see, though, is that guys that use engagement ads and our branding products get better results using affinity segments. Keyword targeting I still think is useful, but in terms of getting as much reach as possible, we say it's better to go a bit broader with affinity segments. In terms of recontacting people, obviously remarketing is super cool, and something that we see great results across the board. The thing with remarketing, though, is obviously the engagement ad unit is not necessarily made to drive a lot of traffic. I mean, you can obviously if there's the correct call to actions in there, but the primary function of the ad unit is to have engagement within the ad unit itself. What you can imagine then is that you're actually getting a lot of engagements, but there's a big proliferation, or a small proliferation rather, of people actually going to your website, which means that you would have very small remarketing lists. So what we do have is, and this you need to get whitelisted for, is storyboarding. And storyboarding is essentially tagless remarketing. So if you are running engagement ads and you want to tell a sequential story, so if someone sees one ad unit and you want to follow up with another ad unit, whether it be on YouTube or across the display network, storyboarding allows you to re-engage with users without having that remarketing tag on a particular website. For that, you need to speak to your Google account manager, and they need to whitelist that for you. In terms of what reporting is available, so the default interface in AdWords doesn't have the metrics for engagement units. It bundles it into clicks and click-through rates, when in fact it's actually talking about engagements and engagement rates. I'll show you where you need to go in the dimensions tab to get all of this detailed information. But essentially, if you're looking at an engagement ad campaign, your cost per clicks are actually your cost per engagements. Your clicks are actually your engagements. Your click-through rate is actually your engagement rate. And your conversions will be your conversions, whether or not you've enabled tracking. We also send you our own internal reports. So we'll have any DFA creatives that go through DoubleClick. We will send you a report, and they're very, very detailed reports with a whole bunch of metrics. And then we have other reporting tools that will allow us to send you more in-depth info on how the campaign went. In terms of your own abilities to see what's going on within AdWords, you need to go to, for a particular campaign, you need to go into the Dimensions tab and click on the Free Clicks dimension. There you're able to see the videos played per quartile, the amount of mouse overs, the amount of expansions, the amounts of collapses, the amounts of clicks to websites, etc. So you've got a whole detailed reporting metrics here, which can help you just understand in between getting reports from anyone from Google how the campaign is done. A couple do's and don'ts. Generally, this applies not just for engagement ads, but we do suggest starting with your bids a little bit more aggressively. It's a good indicator for new campaigns whether or not you mean business, and generally the more you win the auction, the better your results initially, and the better your results, your cost per click or your cost per engagement starts to decline. We do advise using affinity segments as your targeting method. Remarketing using storyboarding, it's just a great opportunity. Thinking of these rich ad formats, it's a great opportunity to be able to tell good stories and recontact people at a really cheap price. So storyboarding is definitely an effective way of doing that. And just try and make sure you get your tracking set up correctly. So if you are measuring leads or conversions, you're able to do so. A couple other things is that if you do want to set yourself up for really granular reporting, we do advise having different ad groups for different targeting options. That way it just makes your data mining and your analysis a lot cleaner and a lot easier to understand. In terms for estimates for cost per engagements, if you've got a client that's been advertising on the Google Display Network over the last 3 months, you probably have an idea of what their cost per click across the display network is. Generally, we find the cost per engagement to be about 75% of that price. That can give you a fair estimate of what you would land up paying. If you don't have a client that has this kind of GDN data, and you want to do something using our engagement ad units, then just reach out to someone from Google, and they'd be able to give you an estimate as to how much you could expect to pay. And then frequency capping. This is not unique to engagement ads. It's important to frequency cap regardless of the ad unit, and obviously the more you keep showing the same ad unit to someone, the less interested they get. So just make sure you are frequency capping. Also really useful in terms of additional metrics is to link your AdWords and YouTube accounts together. This allows you to see various earned metrics, like follow-on views, for example. Follow-on views basically means if someone saw your video through an ad unit and then went off and watched a whole bunch of other videos that sit on your YouTube channel, you would be able to see how many of those views that particular ad unit accrued. And then for the catalog ad unit, we've got a whole bunch of best practices, which is in this deck, which you'd be able to access. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We probably spoke about most of it already. This is just kind of a summary. One of the things to point out, though, is that obviously real-time optimizations make a difference. So just make sure you're monitoring your campaigns on a daily basis, and if there's any alarming things that need to be changed, here's a couple guidelines to go about doing things. And we're coming to the end. A couple benchmarks for you guys in terms of what you could expect. So these are broad benchmarks, and they really do differ based on creative. But right now we're seeing around 2.7% to 3% engagement rates across our ad units, at an average cost per engagement of around £2.50. Again, that depends on your targeting methods and your targeting criteria, but that is the broad average. And then in terms of the available impressions, for our, and this is across the board, and no particular advertiser would be able to get all of these impressions at once. These are total impressions available. We've got about 6.3 million impressions for the Lightbox ad units per week, and for the Harvard to Play about 4.1 million impressions per week.
Jared, those stats, are those only for South Africa? Because you know, the last campaign that we were considering these engagement ads for in Africa, from what I recall, there was limited inventory in Africa. Is that still the case?
I'd have to re-pull that report. These are for South Africa, and if you want to get a sense of the African opportunities, send an email as well. I don't know if you spoke to anyone before. Feel free to include me on that as well, and we can scope it out. I mean, I know Nigeria and Kenya. There's a lot of inventory there. Just to explain to you guys maybe a bit on the technical side about how it works in terms of our available inventory, is that any AdSense partner that's running AdSense on their publisher sites has the opportunity to basically click a button that says allow for expandable ad units on my website. So any publisher that's clicked that allow for expandable ad units on my website, basically that inventory becomes available to us and to these ad units. Obviously, the more you start to define your target audience, the less inventory there is, and it's something that I think people, you know, will just have to learn along the way. There are more broader audiences than others, and I would suggest here, and this is the same approach that gets recommended for YouTube, is that, I mean, due to the nature of the ad unit being someone needs to hover over to actually interact with the ad unit, meaning that someone needs to make the choice to actually engage with you. It's often better to go a bit more broad initially and let people choose to engage with you. If people don't engage with you, you don't pay and your performance metrics don't get hurt. If people do engage with you, then it's almost a win-win situation. So that's it. I think I've finished with 15 minutes to spare. So anyone got any questions? I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Any questions, or have I answered every possible question out there? Don't be shy. There's a prize at the end of it, so it's worth it. No one.
Maybe come back.
Does this mean I'm going to get my own Google prize? Is that what's happening here?
Thanks, okay.
Jared, for answering all questions.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I think that you get it, Jared, for answering all the questions.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? Otherwise we're good. I'll make sure everyone gets this deck with the live demos, with the specs. And again, if you've got clients that are interested, but you know, we've gotten a bit of feedback that some of the minimum spend thresholds are a bit too high. So if you've got clients that want to do some cool branding and do some innovative work, feel free to still reach out to us, and again, we can get into a discussion. It's very much case-by-case basis based on what you're trying to actually do. So there's a lot of cool stuff to do, and I hope you guys go ahead and start doing more of it. Cool. Thanks, everyone. If there's no questions, then 15 minutes back of your day. Hope it was useful.
Thank you.